This is part 4 of solving linear equations. Let's say you would have the problem 16 times x minus 1 is equal to 16. Now, the parentheses might be bothering you a little bit because the x is inside the parentheses, so it's not like you could just add that 1. You can't do plus 1 and plus 1, then get 16 times x is equal to 17, because these can't cancel out because the negative 1 is in the parentheses. So that's wrong. Let's take that away and start over. So let's rewrite the problem and do it correctly. 16 times x minus 1 is equal to 16. There are two ways you can solve this. The first way you can solve it is, since the 16 is being multiplied, 16 on the left-hand side is being multiplied by x minus 1, you can divide both sides of the equation by 16. 16 and divide by 16. Since the 16 is being multiplied by both the x and the minus 1, you can divide both sides by 16. The 16's cancel out. So x minus 1 becomes 16 over 16 is 1. And you can add 1 and add 1 to get the x alone, and x is equal to 2. Another way you could have done this, so let's rewrite the problem and do another way. 16 times x minus 1 is equal to 16. Another way you could have done this is by distributing the 16. The 16 is really being multiplied by the x, and it's being multiplied by the minus 1. So you can write it out. You can write 16x minus 16 is equal to 16, and solve it like this, and you'll get the same answer. So what you want to do is you need to separate the constants from the x and everything that's attached to the x. So you're going to add 16 and add 16. Negative 16 plus 16 cancel out, so you're left with 16x is equal to 16 plus 16 is 32. Then you're going to divide by 16 to get the x alone, and since you're dividing the left side, you have to divide the right side also. 16 over 16, these cancel out, and we're left with just x is equal to 32 over 16, which is 2. However you solve the equation, you would get the same answer, x is equal to 2. You would want to plug in the answer and see it, make sure you got it right. In this case, the answer is correct. You could plug it in to see if you got it right. Let's do another example like that with parentheses. The question is 4 times x minus 4 is equal to 5. Now, there are two ways we could solve it. Let's do it both ways, just to practice. The first way we could solve it is, let's rewrite the question, 4 times x minus 4 is equal to 5. The first way we could solve it is by dividing, since the 4 that's outside the parentheses is being multiplied by everything that's on the whole left-hand side, we can divide the whole left-hand side by 4. And since we're dividing the left-hand side, we have to divide the right-hand side also. So 4 over 4, these cancel out, and we're left with x minus 4 is equal to 5 over 4. Now we want to just get the x alone, so we can add 4 and add 4. X is equal to 5 over 4 plus 4. You could do that on the calculator. Alpha y equals, enter to get a fraction. 5 over 4 plus 4 is equal to 21 over 4. And you would, of course, want to plug in to check. But let's solve it the other way also. The other way we can solve it, let's rewrite the question, 4 times x minus 4 is equal to 5, is by distributing the 4. Since 4 is being multiplied by everything in the parentheses, we can distribute the 4 over the x and over the negative 4. Then we get 4x minus 4 times 4 is 16 is equal to 5. And then we're going to solve this like a regular equation. We want to get the constants on one side and the x's and everything that's being multiplied by the x's on the other side. So to do that, we're going to add 16 to get it away from the left side, and add 16 to put it on the right side. Whatever you do to the left side, you have to do to the right side. 4x is equal to 16 plus 5 is 21. And divide by 4 to get the x alone. Divide by 4. X is equal to 21 over 4. We got the exact same answer no matter how we solve that equation. The next problem that we have is a bit trickier. Let's say we have 4 times x minus 2 minus 6 is equal to 10. So the questions that we just did, looked like the one we did before was 16 times x minus 1 is equal to 16. And then after that, we also did 4 times x minus 4 is equal to 5. These two questions that we did, on the left side, there were parentheses and something being multiplied by the parentheses. And the other one also, parentheses and something being multiplied by the parentheses. But in this new question, we have parentheses and something being multiplied by the parentheses, but we also have a constant term. So this is going to make it more complicated. Because we can't just divide this whole side by 4 and then divide this whole side by 4, because the 6 isn't being multiplied by 4 in the first place. So we can't do this. But there are still two ways we could solve it. The first way we're going to solve it, 4 times x minus 2 minus 6 is equal to 10. Is we're going to bring the constant that's not being multiplied by anything, we're going to bring this 6 to the other side. So plus 6 and plus 6. 4 times x minus 2 is equal to 16. This 6 is canceled out, and 10 plus 6 is 16. Let's continue over here. Now we have 4 times x minus 2 is equal to 16. Now we can divide both sides by 4. Since we only have something in parentheses and something being multiplied by that parentheses, we can divide both sides by 4. And we'll continue over here. X minus 2, because these two 4's cancel out, is equal to 16 over 4, which is 4. Add 2 to both sides, and x is equal to 6. The other way you could solve this equation is by distributing the 4. So you're only going to distribute it over what's in the parentheses. The constant is in this negative 6. The constant, it's not in the parentheses. So we just ignore it, leave it how it is. And then 4 times x is 4x. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. And we have to bring down the constant, and that whole thing is equal to 10. Now we can combine the constants on the left-hand side. So 4x minus 14 is equal to 10. And now we could solve this. This is a pretty basic equation. We're just going to move the constant to the right-hand side, plus 14 and plus 14. 4x is equal to 24. And then we divide both sides by 4. We want to get the x alone, so the 4's cancel out, and 24 divided by 4 is 6. X is equal to 6. Regardless of how you choose to solve the equation, either by moving the 6 to the right-hand side and then dividing by 4, or by distributing the 4 and then combining like terms, you will get the same answer. Let's try one more question. 5 times x plus 2 is equal to x. Now you might notice in the questions that we did before, the first question that we did on this video was 16 times x minus 1 is equal to 16. The one that we did after that was 4 times x minus 4 is equal to 5. You might notice that in these two questions, on the right-hand side we had a constant. On the right-hand side we had a constant. For this last question in this video, we have a variable on the right-hand side of the equation. And that will make the question a little bit more complicated. Because let's say I divided this left-hand side by 5 and the right-hand side by 5, because that will cause the 5's on the left-hand side of the equation to cancel out, and we'll bring the 5 to the other side of the equation. We're allowed to do that because since everything on the left-hand side is being multiplied by 5, we can divide everything on that side by 5 and the 5's will cancel out. But we also have to divide the right-hand side by 5. Now let's see what that would give us. X plus 2 is equal to x over 5. Was that helpful for us? Let's see. How would we continue solving this equation? We don't like to solve with fractions, so we would try to get rid of the fraction on the right-hand side. We would multiply by 5 over 1. So the 5's cancel out, and we would multiply this side by 5 over 1, or 5. Now we're back just to where we started. We're back to the equation. 5 times x plus 2 is equal to x. That didn't really help us at all. So for this question, 5 times x plus 2 is equal to x. It won't help us if we divide both sides of the equation by 5, and we'll have to solve it the other way that we discussed by distributing this constant over the parentheses. So 5 times x is 5x, 5 times 2 is 10, 5x plus 10 is equal to x. And now we could solve it like a regular equation. We want the x's and everything that's attached to the x's to be on one side, and we want the constants to be on the other side. So we're going to bring the 10 to the right-hand side. Minus 10 minus 10. 5x is equal to x minus 10. And we want to bring the x from the right-hand side to the left-hand side. So minus x and minus x. 5x minus x is 4x. 4x is equal to negative 10. Now we want to divide away the coefficient of x. 4x is equal to negative 10. We want to divide away that 4, so we have just x alone. And x is equal to, these 4's cancel. X is equal to negative 10 over 4, which can be reduced. X is equal to 10 and 4 are both divisible by 2, so 10 divided by 2 is negative 5, 4 divided by 2 is 2. X is equal to negative 5 over 2. Of course, you would want to plug in this answer, check it to make sure it is correct, but for this question, it is correct.